Turn up the dive, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember right. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the group. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
The paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your host, Dr. Dean Bertram.
Greetings, all my fellow weirdos and weirdettes. Welcome to Talking Weird on the Untold Radio Network. I'm your host, Dean Bertram, and as always, I am delighted that you are watching either live tonight or listening on one of the many podcast platforms that carry the Untold Radio Network shows after I've gone live. I've been super busy this week, and I know how all you are. I'm literally about to drop, or we're about to drop, the program for the 8th annual Midwest Weird Fest, which takes place the first weekend of March, so that means this year it's March 1 to 3 in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, at the Mach Downtown Cinema. If you like horror films, paranormal documentaries, all things strange, science fiction, and the like, come to Midwest Weird Fest and check us out. It's very reasonably priced. It's an incredible festival. There's lots of filmmakers and guests there. And sometimes I do bump into people from the show. And as I mentioned last week, if you buy a season pass and they're like $60 for the whole weekend, they're hardly anything costing wise really at all, although every penny counts, I guess, these days. But you will get this year collectible dog tag to the festival, which we normally only give to the VIP filmmakers. You'll have the exact same tag as the VIP filmmakers this year. So I'm super excited about Midwest Weird Fest, and the full program drops tomorrow. We've already had first wave announcements and other announcements, but tomorrow you can go to midwestweirdfest.com and you'll see every single film which is screening there this year. But let's move on to the show tonight, because this is a super exciting and brand new info one. It's always fun to be one of the first people to get to something new. And thanks to tonight's guest we're going to, he's an author, an illustrator, and you know what? This is super embarrassing. I popped up another guest's intro. So he's an American author, rather, that's what gave it away, a screen and songwriter, as well as an avocational paleontologist. He's referred to as the Prince of Paleofiction, and he's best known for his Kronos Rising series of sci-fi suspense thrillers, which have garnered both Book of the Year and People's Choice Awards. He's the Amazon #1 best-selling author of the cryptid research book, Monsters and Marine Mysteries. He's also written Memoirs of a Gym Rat, an outrageous expose of the health club industry, and the children's book, I Want a Tyrannosaurus for Christmas, which I'm sure my daughter would love, and been meaning to get that for her for a while. She loves dinosaurs. And his own experiences with the weird go back decades as well. In the summer of 1984, he encountered an unknown creature digging itself out of a grave in a cemetery in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In that same region in 1989, he watched a UFO hurtling across the night sky and do an impossible maneuver, a complete and instantaneous 180-degree reversal with no deceleration or noticeable turning at a speed that it was at least 3 times that of the commercial jets below it. And that was approximately Mach 2 is what he estimates. And during the summer of 1993, he observed a huge anthropoid-like creature, which he believes to be a Sasquatch, for 10 to 15 minutes as it dived repeatedly for crayfish in a Connecticut lake. And on November 22, 2016, he and his daughter observed a winged entity that had apparently crash landed in the street near their home. This is all fascinating because, of course, people like John Keel suggested that maybe some people are more likely to encounter the weird and the anomalous, and tonight's guest certainly seems like one of those people. But anyway, let's just jump straight into it. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome back to Talking Weird, Max Hawthorne. Greetings, Max.
Hi, Dean. Thanks for having me on.
Mate, it's so good to have you back. Now, you have some super exciting news and information to share, and I think this is one of the first shows that you've come on to actually discuss it. Am I right?
Actually, it is the first show.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm honored and privileged to have you here.
Thank you.
You called me a couple of weeks ago. Sorry?
I said it's just the microphone was working, but
yeah, we had some technical issues. That's why we were a couple of minutes late, but we're going, which is the main thing. Now, you called me a little while ago and said you were going to have a relatively big announcement soon. So I was eager to hear what it was. And within the last week or so, you let me know what it was. And I've since watched the video, which we're going to be talking about. And people can see that. Let's start by saying what that address is for when we're talking about it, so people can. We'll talk about the address again at the end, but let's give it to them right now.
You mean the website address?
Yeah, the website address. That's right.
The website address is just my name with a .com on the end. So it's just maxhawthorne.com. I think they did that so that it was easy for me to remember.
That probably does make it easier for you to remember. So you have captured a video on a trail cam of something which appears to be genuinely anomalous. And perhaps rather than me setting the scene, because I'm sure you're going to be better at it than me, maybe you can fill us in about how you took it and how you found out what was ultimately on that footage.
Sure. And to answer Flat's question, yes, I was the police officer and I left my wallet in El Segundo, the rap video. Peter Dinklage was in there also. Obviously, he's become a bigger star than I have, but that's beside the point. So this took place, I believe it was February 16th of 2023. And I was staying at this residence there where there had been an incident years prior in that general vicinity. There's a lot of woods around there. Bucks County is known as a cryptid hotspot and whatnot. So to begin with, all sorts of sightings, everything from ghosts to UFOs to Bigfoot to Dogman, etc. And back in 2016, my daughter and I had encountered this winged entity that had apparently crash landed in the street shortly before we came upon it in my truck as we were driving home. She was only 7 at the time. And so I had periodically been putting out trail cameras in the hopes of catching one of these things, on video. And I had had some success with it, although I had found out that when they're so fast that the camera, usually you only get a few frames of them as they're leaving the frame. You see what I'm saying? Like when they trigger the camera or something like that. So at this point I was at his residence and they have a cat, and the cat was, it must have been like 4 o'clock in the morning, February 16th. So whatever, I don't know what day of the week that was, but, and this cat was like kicking up quite a fuss. And I had a trail camera affixed to the deck on the back of this house, to a deck post. It was kind of like the bottom of a short set of stairs there on the deck post to my left if you were going down the stairs. And there's like grass back there and the woods were back there and all this stuff. And so I decided to go out and take a look around. It was pretty dark. They had a few little, like, I don't know, these firefly-like lights or something like that in jars. So you could see a little bit. And I was standing there, and then it got a little weird. It was like the temperature, and it wasn't warm, it wasn't super cold. I think it was like 50 degrees. All of a sudden, it just dropped, like as if something cold like came up to you. And the hairs on the back of my neck were started doing this stuff. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And you get this feeling like as if, you know, like if you take your arm and you rub it on a balloon,
Mm-hmm.
and like the hair stands up, or if there's like a thunderstorm approaching, something like that, like a little bit of electricity or something like that in the air. So I thought maybe one of these flying creatures was about to make an appearance. So I took my hand, and in front of the camera, I went like this. I call it flashing the camera. Okay. And if you do that fast, your hand doesn't appear in there. It just turns on the camera and it runs for like 30 seconds. And I stood there and I looked and I looked and I looked. I didn't see anything, but it was, like I said, it was very cold. It was getting a little creepy. And I was like, all right, that's enough of that. And I went back inside. Okay. The next day, I brought the camera in, and at that particular time slot, I expected there to be nothing, but there was this weird, like, disturbance, we'll call it, that was occupying the majority of the screen. And at first, I was like, well, that can't be fog or snow or mist. I mean, I was out there, you know, and there wasn't anything there. And I was like, maybe it's like an insect wing, like somehow an insect landed on the, you know, the lens or something like that, except it was wintertime, you know, February. I mean, there are insects called winter moths, but their wings are not translucent or transparent. And whatever this was, you could see through it. You could see there was a railing behind it, like off to the right, you know? So the more I looked at it, it was like this swirling mass. And I mean swirling. I think it goes like this way, like, that would be, if you were looking down at it, I guess that would be counterclockwise if you were above it. Okay. And on an angle, and it's like a cyclone almost. And it started, the more I looked at it, I was like, it looked like energy, like actual energy. Like, I don't know what kind of energy you would call it. It wasn't electricity, like plasma or something like that. Okay. So I'm like, okay, that's really, really odd. So then I took the footage and I started playing around with it. So I started adjusting the contrast. Now, everybody knows when you adjust contrast, contrast makes darks darker and lights lighter. So a light source will get brighter and a shadow will get darker. Right?
Yeah.
You agree with me on this?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm glad somebody does. So when I increased it to 50%, the field shrank. And it shrank from like a whole big oblong shaped thing to something more like this kind of. And then I increased it to like 80%. And then it became obvious it was sort of shaped like a humanoid, meaning the head, the neck, the shoulders, like somebody's profile picture almost. You know how you have like those like nondescript like figure profiles when somebody doesn't have an actual photo?
Yeah.
It's sort of a shape like that. And even at 90%, it became even more pronounced. So I was like, okay, that seems really weird. So then I was like messing around with it. And I started going through it. I think I had it on 80% conscious when I was doing this. I was clicking through it, like click, 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 here and there, here and there. And you could see the field would change. You know, it points, it was like a certain brightness. And then in the middle, it got really bright. And then it dropped back a little. And then it kind of faded. It sort of like it went away. Like it like sucked into itself as it backed up. Okay. And somewhere around the halfway point, I was clicking. And all of a sudden I look, I'm like, wait a minute. I look closer, and I was like, is that a face? And I was like, can I say holy crap on the air here?
I think that's probably as blue a language as we can go, but that's okay. I think the crypt's
Okay,
okay.
like in everybody goes raving, like, holy crap, you know, that kind of thing.
I think that's
I was like, holy cow.
That's
And I realized I was looking at a face. It was a very angry looking face. It was kind of angled like back a bit, had these eyes and had these sharp teeth and these mega like heavy cheekbones and stuff like that, this type of stuff. And I was like, is that? And I'm like, whoa. So then I started getting the frames that were leading up to that point and leading away from it to go through it. I think it was like 15 or 20 of them or something like that. The film was at 20 FPS, 20 frames per second. So I'm like clicking, click, 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 click. And you could see this thing. And it was like, and at first I thought it was a ghost. And I was like, holy cow, I got a ghost on video. You know, I even told a friend of mine from, hi Mark, from an old high school guy. And I said, I got a ghost on film. And he was like, yeah, you're out of your mind. I'm like, No, I swear to God. He's like, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, okay. So, and then I'm looking at it, I'm studying it more and more. And I'm like, well, if this is a ghost, it does not look like a person. So if it's a ghost, it ain't a human's ghost. You know what I mean? So then I started focusing on it more. And then I started going through all the clip. And I started realizing that I was looking at was some sort of energy field. And there was something hidden inside that energy field. Okay. Something. Okay. And when I crunched it, tried to figure out how big it was. And I also eventually took a video of myself back there. This thing was not small. It was like a good 7 feet in height. So it wasn't a small creature, whatever it was, but there was something, it was hiding inside this field, like a cloak. Okay. Like a cloaking device. And so I went all the way to the beginning and I started finding, because you wouldn't find it all the time. It was like really hidden. And this energy field, the first frames I got of it, it was like turned to the side. And it was apparently right like within 6 feet where I was standing. But I couldn't see it when it was there. Okay, which means that it was, except for the infrared, it was basically invisible. And that may sound nuts, but when people go on the site and they see the video, you're going to see this, there's some creature inside this energy field. So I was like, okay, so when I first found it was turned to the side, but it almost looked like a skull. Like it had like almost no meat on it. And the skull looked almost like a gorilla skull. It had like a bit of a muzzle sticking out and a heavy brow ridge and stuff like that, and sharp teeth. And so you see that in when you see the video. And then it was like turned to the side, and then it turned forward, and it was looking pretty skeletal at this point. Maybe had a little more meat on it, let's say. And you see its eyes pop like this, like it's like that. And I think it realized that it was on candid camera at that point. Okay. And I don't think it was very happy about it either. And of course, I was oblivious to it. So I would have been a sitting duck if this thing had decided to do something to me. And then as you see go on and you get to what I call the grimace shot, which is the one I was just describing, that was the first one I saw, is when it has like the most meat on its bone, so to speak. So this cloak or this field that seems to conceal this creature, it acts like, to me, okay, it acts like an MRI or a CAT scan or something like that, where it or an X-ray. Like if you take an X-ray, you put your arm on an X-ray machine, it eliminates your flesh and all you see are the bones. But if you increase that exposure high enough, you wouldn't even see the bones. Of course, that would be very damaging to the organism that was exposed to that. But the point is that this field, which I believe this entity uses to conceal itself, it sort of functions like that, because that's why sometimes you see like almost a skeleton, sometimes you see more flesh on it, and sometimes you see it where it's pretty much almost all there, except maybe it's missing a little bit of skin. Okay, so the grimace shot, I think at first when it turned, I realized it was being filmed, like it was staring at the video camera, its eyes bulged out, and then it leaned back and has this look on its face like, oh, like when you just got caught doing something you weren't supposed to be doing or something like that. Or I joke and say it's the, I'm going to get fired for this. I just know I am, that kind of expression almost. Of course, it's not a human thing, but it is an emotional response. And then it starts to like lean back, loom a bit, and then it starts to gradually withdraw. You see different shots of it and everything, and you can see some of its neck and all this other stuff. And then it, like I said, it kind of like sucks into itself as it retreats and it disappears. So I don't know if it just winked out or if there's only a certain range where the infrared camera can detect it or something like that. There might be like a certain point where you can't see it unless it's like almost on top of you. Again, a disconcerting thought. Okay. But at any rate, but that's basically what happened. And yeah, so that was the story. And then I looked at this thing after I put out, like we finished the documentary on it, I got more images because this entity and or another one came back other times and got caught on film. And I got some other images of it, and it's
Did we lose Max? If people can hear me and not Max, say hi in the chat. Hi to Sam and Scott who are listening and messaging me personally. Can you hear me? Anybody in the chat? Because I've lost Max. I don't know if it's me who's gone or if it's Max. Am I here? Somebody just write in the chat so I know I'm not talking into the ether. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Ristol. We had an interesting question before. I hope Max comes back. But the question had to do with whether Bucks County is in the Chestnut Ridge area, which would be fascinating. Of course, the Chestnut Ridge is a well-known paranormal UFO cryptid hotspot, and it does look like I'm by myself now. It looks like Max has totally disappeared. Hopefully, he will call back. It's, as I was saying before, it always fascinates me when there are people who have had multiple experiences with the paranormal. And it's, at first, it sometimes seems unusual for those of us who haven't had a lot of them, that there are other people out there who have, but there are people who've had multiple encounters. And as John Keel suggested, there might be people that attract something, or there might be people that are more susceptible to it. And thankfully, Mr. Hawthorne is backstage, and I'm going to enter him back into the chat again. We're glad you're back.
I'm so sorry. I think it's because I have a VPN and that was interfering with stuff. But Max, you are so musical. Any connection to Meyer Hawthorne? I don't know who that is. So I'm going to say no, but hi.
Asper's actually, Asper C and her husband Jay Katz are hosts on this network as well. They do a wonderful show called Down South Anomalies, and are dear friends of mine. Their show's amazing. We had a question I started to talk about when you weren't here, though, and that was just quickly before we get back into it, because this is something which interests me, particularly because you've seen a number of things in this area. Is Bucks County part of the Chestnut Ridge? Are you guys anywhere near the Chestnut Ridge there?
I do not know. I do know that in Doylestown, for example, which is only 5 miles from me as the crow flies, there have been numerous like dogman sightings. I mean, huge, upright, dark, bipedal canines seen by like families, like a mom picked up her kids from high school and they're driving down the road and this thing bounds across the road in front of them and leaps 20 feet into the trees. Wow. So there's a lot of them.
I know David Paulides has talked about Pennsylvania being a state with a lot of weird disappearances, and it interests me that you're talking about something which is cloaked, because that has come to the forefront, and much of the missing 411 discussions as well. Like in Missing 411 The Hunted, there's some footage there that the wife of the famous ufologist Bruce Maccabee caught of something that looked like it was cloaked from her tree stand when she was hunting. So when I hear Pennsylvania and I hear something that's cloaked, and I think of Paulides, because I can't not think about that type of phenomenon. So did you get the sense it might have been stalking you, by the way, that night? Because you said you felt it.
Did I, like, how much did it got lost when I was talking? Like, did it just happen all of a sudden, or? It
went pretty, you froze for probably 30 seconds and then just dropped out. So it happened pretty quick.
Okay. So what was the last thing I said? I don't know, obviously.
Oh gosh, I was scrambling now. I've actually forgotten. It was mid sentence anyway. But just
okay. I don't know if it was stalking me. It was a disconcerting thing. I do believe it came back the following night, and I think it wanted to get rid of the trail camera. Understand if it was still there, because I was still in that house. And the following night, it wasn't 4 a.m. I mean, my sleep patterns are all over the place. So I get no sleep sometimes. But at one point, there was this really loud thump, as if something had like hit the wall of the house or something like that, you know? And then next time I was over there, I had noticed that they had a hose reel on the wall and something had broken it. And it was a big, heavy hose reel. I think there was a connection with this hose and this pipe, and it had been like struck so hard it scratched the copper and pulled it apart. So I don't know. I mean, that could have been a deer that jumped up and somehow decided to ram a wall, or it could have been something that showed up the next day to try and cover its, and the camera was gone and it got angry and it struck it. I don't know. I mean, it's conjecture, but I found it interesting that the next night there was like a boom, like on the side of the house, so, but in terms of the stalking thing, see, there was an incident at my house, which is a quick drive from there. Okay. Not a long drive. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of wooded areas around there, but where I had gone out to the trash and had been threatened by something. Okay. And so I don't know if this is related or not. See, but,
can you describe those experiences or?
Yeah, it's kind of an odd thing, but so around where I live, I like to in the development. Sometimes at night, I'll go for these long walks. Sometimes an hour or two, maybe chew the fat with somebody or a friend or a researcher or something like that. And this one particular night, I think it was a Sunday night. I think it was late November of 21, to be exact. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to check my notes and stuff, and we have in our development, there's like we're at the top of a hill, and then there's like woods to the left or something when you go out to the curb. And I had already taken out the trash and the recycling, and my wife said, "Oh, you forgot to take out the contents of the litter robots." I don't know if you know what litter robots are, but they're these really big automatic litter boxes for cats. And it's like looks like I call them the Death Stars because it's got this glow at the top, and there's a lot of damage being done in there, and so it's like self-cleaning. And then once a week you have to empty the tray, which is a trash bag, and take it out. So she gives me and we have two big cats. I don't know if you've ever seen my cats.
No, I've never seen them.
No, well, they're Siberian forest cats, and the larger one is like maybe 26 pounds, which is a lot of cats.
Yeah,
they're very goofy on top. Yeah, but they're great watchdogs. I mean, like fantastic. So what happened is she hands me this 15-pound sack of cat poop. Okay, and double or triple bag, and I'm like, fine, I'll take it out. It was like 10:30 at night, and I walk out to the curb, and the trash can. Recycling can was on the left, trash can was on the right. So I got to the bottom of the driveway and I grabbed the lid, I lifted it up, and I had the thing there. And it sounded like something right across the street, but not quite in the woods, like snarled or growled at me. And it was like this really deep, rumbling, threatening kind of sound. And the scariest part was it was kind of drooly at the end. And it was like something like this. It almost sounded like a Kodiak bear, but we don't have any Kodiak bears in Pennsylvania or even grizzlies or anything like that, and it was quite alarming, especially when you're standing there and your weapon is a bag of cat poop. You know what I mean? It's a little disconcerting. And I knew it was big because you could feel it resonate through your chest, and you felt a little vibration through the soles of your feet. So whatever this was large and it was close. But I couldn't see it. It was dark over there, and by the trees it was dark and whatever. So I was like, that's nice. So I just lowered the bag, I closed the lid, I backed up, and I went in the house. So then my wife was like, I told her what happened. She goes, "Oh, you should take a flashlight and go look for it." And I said, "That's a great idea. I think I'll do that." And ladies, this is why you live longer than we do, because we are stupid. Okay. And so I get my sidearm because, I have a concealed carry permit under my jacket on my belt, and I have a flashlight, and I go back out. This was only a minute later. Okay. I walked right back out there, and I got to the base of the, my property, and I was right behind the trash cans there, and just in case, and I took the flashlight and I was shining it on the tree line stuff, back and forth like that. And I couldn't see anything, but I felt it was watching me. Okay. I felt it was watching me. I even went up high in case it was eye shining like 10 feet up and stuff like that. Okay. And I was trying to egg it on. I was doing this. I'm like, come on. I literally said, "Come and get some," because I thought this thing was dangerous. It could have been a rabid bear. It could have been some hulking serial killer. It could have been one of these dog men, that we've had all these reports of and stuff. Whatever it was, I was not going to be threatened on my property. Okay. But nothing happened, thankfully. So I backed up. I wasn't turning my back on it. I went back in the house. Okay. So it is possible that if this was one of these creatures, and I believe that they hunt in the woods, all in that area there, I believe they hunt deer. And I say this because I have some evidence of that. But, I think that if it was watching me, wait, I should bring about why this happened. And
Sure.
That is because the night before, when I said I would walk around the area and stuff, I was out walking and 15 minutes or so had passed, and I had to take a leak. Okay. And I didn't want to go in the house all sweaty and have to take all my coat off and all this other stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, the woods is right there. So I walked 30 feet into the woods. There was a fallen log. I did my thing and I left. Okay, which is the exact area where this thing happened. So I realized this thing must have taken that as me trying to horn in on its territory. You know what I mean? Like that's how animals mark their territory, like lions and everything else. They urinate. So I think this thing saw it as a challenge, and it was kind of letting me know, like, you know, I will eat you or something like that, you know, like this type of stuff. And I think it was quite surprised when I, who am probably half or a third its weight, you know what I mean, and stuff like that, came back out there and tried to challenge it to a duel, something that I couldn't even see. I didn't know I couldn't see it if it's what I think it was, you understand? Because it seemed a lot closer than the tree line, but maybe it was in the tree line. I don't know. Now, it must have been like, you know, ever see like a lion when a honey badger tries to get in its face? And the lion has this look like, is he kidding me? I think that might have been what happened. I don't know. Okay. But I may have roused their curiosity. It may have been, you know, they know what I smell like, obviously, and everything. But, you know, so I don't know. I mean, it may have come to that house knowing I was there and been creeping around. I can't tell you.
There's a similar question to my last one from Brian Huhing. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Brian. And that is are there any ley lines close by? I think a lot of people are thinking of this window area or some spiritual or paranormal influence in the area that you live in.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that, like, my sister-in-law 30 years earlier, when this where I live wasn't even, it was just swamp or something, very swampy territory, had been driving by there, and she'd seen a guy from that looked like he'd been coal mining 100 years earlier, walking along down the side of the road, you know, freezing temperatures with just like a rolled up flannel shirt, suspenders and stuff like that. She said he was like translucent and almost, and she turned to look at him, and he looked at her through the window of the car, and his eyes were completely black when he stared at her. And it was like he kind of loomed like this, like, and she said it was like he was staring through her skull. She was like, oh, and she like sped up a little bit, looked back, and he was gone. You know, so I think she even said she saw him kind of fade out or something like that. But that, I think, was probably a ghost or something. So I believe this was an actual reptilian extraterrestrial. In fact, I know it is. I'm just going to go out and say it. Okay, so that's why, I mean, I was so excited about putting this documentary together, because, you know, everybody's asking, okay, are extraterrestrials real? You know, are reptilians real? Are they here? Are cloaked predators real? What are they? This answers all those questions, because you've got a cloaked predator, you get to see inside the cloak, and you get to see its face. And even though the skin is missing, if you look, you can tell you've got this creature with this heavy cheekbones and this heavy brow ridge, and it has these tubercles lining its brow. Tubercles are round scales, like bumps that you see like on certain types of dinosaurs and other reptiles like that. And if you look at fossil dinosaur skin, you will see that type of stuff. It has sharp teeth. It has vertical pupils. You know, at first I thought it was a Bigfoot, and I explore all this in the video, you know, trying to figure out what we're looking at and stuff. But that my belief is 100% you're looking at a 7-foot tall reptilian creature with a cloaking device. And if I'm right, that means that it's quite possible that the creature that Paulides' his friend's wife saw when she was bow hunting in that tree that was watching her was also a cloaked reptilian. So
now, I just wanted to ask you a question unrelated to what we're talking about. When you had your headphones on before, could you hear me even though the mic wasn't working? Because there's a little bit of feedback while I'm talking, that's all.
I mean, I have the headphones here and I could hear you, but I think you were interfered with a little bit. I mean,
if you plug that in, well, are they plugged in, or are you hearing me through the headphones?
But when I go on here and I click on audio, it doesn't seem to give me the choice of using them. It says,
okay.
You know,
we might just have to live with it then. Okay, so let's that's all right. Let's just jump back into the conversation. You do mention in the documentary that a number of different possibilities, and whatever it is, my suggestion would be, or my interpretation might be, that to come to the direct conclusion that it's like an extraterrestrial. I mean, it might be demonic, and you mentioned that. Well, you were like, well, it could be demonic, but I don't think so. Or it could be interdimensional. It could be spiritual. I'm as a Fortean and somebody who is reluctant to accept any conclusion about a phenomenon that we're not sure about. I'm not sure how you're. And I'm not being hostile. I'm not sure how you're sure it's extraterrestrial. Like, could it? Do you think it possibly is? Like, could it be interdimensional? Could it be demonic? Could it be something else? Or,
well, I know for a fact it's reptilian, and I know for a fact because I have better images of it that I did not have when we made the first documentary. So the second documentary is going to show you a lot more about this particular creature. Okay, I don't like calling it a creature. This particular entity.
Mm-hmm.
So
I prefer entity more as well, by the way, because that could be.
I don't want him getting pissed off or anything. So interdimensional doesn't preclude it being an extraterrestrial. You don't understand what I'm saying? Like, so that cloak may also be a portal. See? So, I mean,
Apparently people don't hear the echo, which is good news.
Okay. You want me to try unplugging the
no, people are saying it's not a problem. It might just be on my end. Yes, I think what I'm saying is that or I know what I'm saying is that when somebody has an encounter with, say, an extraterrestrial, right. I'm not so sure it's, even if it says I'm an extraterrestrial from the planet Zeta Reticula, I'm like, how do I know you're from planet Zeta Reticula? You know, I have no idea where you're from. You seem to exist, you seem to be interacting with me, but it's like, I always use the analogy, and I think it's a good one, that if you're a kid and a clown pulls up out the front of your driveway in a van and says, hey, I'm Funbo the clown and I want to go to Disneyland. We're going to go to Disneyland where I live. We're going to have a big party and there are puppies and everything else in the back of my truck. Let's go, kid. It's going to be fun. You'd be foolish if you're a kid and trusted Funbo. And I wonder if some of these things present as something different to what they actually are. That's the only point that I'm making.
Well, when people look at the video, I suggest you go through it. You can do it slowly, whatever you want to do. Obviously, you can adjust speed, but you're going to see a lot of bizarre stuff with this cloak. And like I said, it may also be a portal. I mean, meaning that it appears there, etc. But it does stay there for a prolonged period of time. And if it was a portal, I don't think it could just sit in it. But then I know nothing about these type of technologies, and nor does anybody else that I'm aware of. But I mean, for it to be invisible and stay there for at least 30 seconds, you know what I'm saying? And able to move up on me like that, even though it was dim out there and stuff. And I can't see anything, obviously. So it's holding invisibility there. But if it's a portal also, that's very interesting, because then these creatures or entities can move around, travel from place to place, et cetera, and you can't even see them when they get there, is the point. But it's 100% reptile. There's no doubt in my mind. And when you see the second documentary, which is going to be in a few months, you're going to be like, you're right. It's definitely a reptile. Okay. I even call the creature handsome. Okay. Because he looks scary in the first video because he's missing his epidermis in that grimace shot. But I have shots of him with all the stuff, etc. So I that's my nickname for him. I call him handsome because, he is handsome in a enigmatic, dinosaurian sort of way, let's say. Okay. But could it be a demon that's a reptilian? I guess so. I mean, it's an interdimensional creature, and I'm sure it has that capacity, but that's more for traveling, etc. You see, it doesn't stop it from being an extraterrestrial, obviously, because there's got to be ETs in every dimension, if you think about it. So it doesn't have to be just a purely straight from here all the time type of setup, if you know what I'm saying, in my opinion.
No, I totally get what you're saying. I think that's the realm that we live in. So much of it is opinion, and I'm only breaking your balls a little because I know you well enough to do it. And that is that I'm never sure what any of these things are. I don't doubt people who've had experiences. I'm just never sure if what they're seeing is or what they experience is the popular interpretation. Like, could it be spiritual? Could it be extraterrestrial? Could it be interdimensional? Could be all of those things. Who knows?
It certainly could. And like I said, it wasn't until I saw it 100% in the flesh that I was sure of what I was looking at. So, but I don't think it's a demon or anything like that, because I mean, I've been near multiple ones of these creatures, and I've been near some of them knowing I can't see them in the dark. Okay. And that's a pretty scary thing to do. The first time I did it, you know, I was in the basement of this building there, and you know, cats can see these creatures. Okay, let's be clear on that. Cats can see in the ultraviolet spectrum, and they also have heat sensors on their skin. So they're very good at seeing ghosts, and they're very good at seeing things, let's say, from the astral plane or whatever it might be, things that aren't there that we can't see, that the infrared camera can sometimes. Okay. And I knew there was one of these, something was in the dark there, and I had a feeling it wasn't one of them following me around and stuff. And I was like, all right. So I went in there, and I the cat wanted to come out. I was like, no, I'll take care of this. And I shut the door, and now I'm standing there in the dark, pitch black, and I know there's something in there. And I heard something move a little bit and stuff, you know, and I turned on the camera. And at one point I was like, it was getting a little hairy in there, if you know what I'm saying, and all. So I took like this flashlight on a really tight beam, and I was sweeping it along with this. And then at about close to the 9-foot mark, I saw the eye shine, pair of eyes. Okay. And it was like, even though you couldn't see it, the eye shine was still there. And it was sort of casting a shadow as well. I guess the combination of the infrared camera and that. And you saw the eyes like narrow, and then it moved like this, and it tried to shift and hide itself. And including, if you go off on the head, this thing was a solid 9 feet tall. 9 feet. And I was like, it's nice. Okay. But the point is if it wanted to do something to me, it had every opportunity. You know, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it was some sort of demon or some sort of, you know, mindless, rapacious thing, etc. And the ones I've encountered, they don't seem to be like that. So I think they're more observers. Let's put it that way. Which means that they've been observing me.
Do you think they have the ability to come and go out of your residence, for example? Like they can go wherever they want to go? Or are they primarily, like in the Paulides stories, these things seem to primarily be, you know, they get people in the woods or on lonely highways when they're a trucker, or maybe, you know, even in a city back alley, but there's probably less, you know, encounters supposedly in houses. I mean, I'm just.
You mean they're like preying on people, or?
Well, yeah, you said these things are. Let's just talk. We're talking about the cloaked thing, which has become, I guess, part of the 411 law ever since the Bruce Maccabee story. These things, normally most of the narratives seem to have them outside. Now, when they come inside, of course, it fits closer to other supernatural and paranormal type manifestations. But I wonder if people then, when it's inside, tend to go, well, it must have been a ghost. Well, if they see something weird and cloaked in the woods, they think it's something else. I guess what I'm getting to is, I wonder if all of this stuff is somehow related, if ghostly manifestations are related to these things outside, and if there's no difference between somebody having a rock thrown at them by a Sasquatch and a poltergeist throwing a rock on your roof, you know, when you see neither of these things. But I'm just curious of how much all of this is interconnected, and if what you've captured somehow is a clue to how some of these things are interconnected.
I have collected so much stuff, it would blow your mind. I have done investigations with thermals and with infrareds and a lot of other stuff, and it's like there's a whole universe out there, and some of it is right here that nobody knows about, nobody is seeing. So have they been watching me? At times, yes. A friend asked me, don't you find that a little uncomfortable? Maybe they're watching you when you're in the bathroom and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, if that happens, that's their problem. I feel bad for them, and, you know, sorry, whatever, you know, you really should change the channel. Okay. You know, I joke that, like, if they were to creep by my house and look in my office window, you know, right to my left there's a painting for one of the Cronus Rising novels, a promotional painting of this pliosaur with its head sticking out of the water with a girl in a bikini hugging it. It's called Have You Hugged Your Pliosaur Today? Maybe they like that. It's a reptile. Probably like, hey, he's one of us, you know, this type of thing. But they are able to communicate verbally. I mean, I've been roared at, as you know. I was growled at. They are also able to speak to you, and it's eerily like what Whitley Strieber, is that his name?
Yes, Strieber.
Yeah, where he says that when he was spoken to by those rays, when they talk to you, where they can speak to you, and you hear it inside your head, as if you've heard it, but it's bypassing your ears. You know, it's like a very freakish thing. Like, you know, it takes some getting used to, let's put it that way. And I guess they're just bypassing that and transmitting somehow, you know, the words or whatever, the meaning into your cortex. I don't know. I'm not a brain surgeon or whatnot. So,
speaking about Strieber, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show. There's a documentary called Alien Abduction Answers, which we world premiered at Midwest Weedfest a couple of years ago, made by John Yost, and John Yost appeared in it, and Whitley Strieber was a big part of that documentary as well. We lost John Yost yesterday. We lost him to a long and drawn-out battle with cancer, which is very sad because he was an incredibly talented filmmaker and a wonderful human being. I meant to say that at the top of the show, and I forgot to, so I'm sure everybody who knew John is terribly sad about his passing. But talking about Strieber, talking about extraterrestrials and reptilians and this kind of thing, do you think... I know you're somebody who's interested in paleontology. If these things are genuinely physical reptilians on some level, does that mean you think they've evolved differently to us elsewhere? Or I know some people have suggested things here evolved differently and hid underground or elsewhere. Like I've heard the theory that the reptilians have always been with us. But do you have a take on that? Or
yeah. So I think there's a lot of different species of reptilian out there. I've been like getting into this more and more and more, and the ones that I've gotten on footage of, they don't have these big crocodile faces and stuff like that. You know, I have gotten an image of one like that. And there's others that are like these, the ones that you'll see on the first, that you saw on the first video, and you'll see more of on the second, and the one that's on the third video, they're not Drakens or Draconians, if you want to call them that. Their faces are more like a mixture between a man and a reptile, I guess you'd say. Like I said, the shape, the muzzle is shorter. It's almost like more like a gorilla type of shape. And I don't mean that to be derogatory. They have large jaws. The jaw muscles must be quite powerful. And in the second video, you'll see their teeth. And they have teeth like a Gila monster, which sounds scary. And I guess as a flesh eater, obviously they would. But that's the type of teeth they have, interlocking type of teeth. So these ones, I believe, are saurians, meaning they're, I'm going to go out and say it, I believe they're descended from or related to dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
The texture of their skin is very similar or identical to some fossilized dinosaur skin that I've looked at. It's identical. I mean, they're coated with it. So if you put that together, I mean, different species like Troodon and things like that, that other people have surmised might have become more advanced over millions and millions of years and were bipedal, et cetera, and stuff. This could also be other extraterrestrials may have combined the DNAs, you know? So we'll see. I mean, I have a lot of stuff, and I'm going to be bringing it out video by video by video, in increments and stuff, so that it's all synced together and so that people don't get overwhelmed. Let's call it. So let's put it that way. Okay. But, you know, it's fascinating stuff, and it's an honor to be a part of it. Let's put it that way.
Do you plan, once you've released it in increments, that eventually it might be a feature, or you might put it all together where somebody can just get an overview of it by watching like a feature-length documentary? Or
well, I mean, right now, the website, when people go on the site and they want to see the first documentary, which I think is 23 minutes or something like that. I don't hold me to it. I don't. But they have a choice of, they can do a 2-day Netflix style rental. I think it's like $7 or something like that. Or they can do like a $9.99 a month thing, and then they can watch anything they want as many times as they want. So eventually there's going to be a lot of videos on there. It'll make a lot of sense for people to be subscribing, because then they can see tons and tons of stuff. And I've got a lot of stuff. I mean, you'd be astonished the stuff I have. I mean, like, and not just about reptilians, right? Like the Mothman. I'm sure you got Mothman fans out there.
Of course.
Yeah, I've got footage, stills, close-ups of the face. And that thing is, I'm sorry to say, is scarier looking than the reptilian. So, I would call it an insectoid. Let's put it that way.
Sorry, an insectoid? I didn't hear it. I was talking over you. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I said the Mothman is, in my opinion, an insectoid. I believe it's an extraterrestrial of insect origins. It has large eyes, multifaceted, a chitinous kind of like skin. It looks like it's armored, like the face, the head, things like that. You know, it has wings, etc. So, but all things in time.
Do you plan, because I think of you more as an author perhaps than a documentarian, even though I know you've made a number of videos and we've talked about them on the show before, including your very interesting documentary on Megalodon. But do you plan on writing an accompanying book talking about these experiences? Or
eventually? I mean, I just got immersed into this. I would even call it like dragged into it almost. It almost got thrust upon me. You know, and it's not something like that you can turn your back on. So, I mean, I'm going to keep trying to write my regular novels or novellas and stuff like that on the side while doing all my investigations and filming and putting stuff together, et cetera, and stuff. Eventually, if it's a feature film, it's not something I had any aspirations for. I guess if there's an opportunity, maybe down the road. But right now, I'm just trying to, you know, like get all the stuff I have and put it together so I can share it with everybody. I mean, that's the goal. So, you know, I can only just do so much at one time.
So after you captured this thing on a trail cam, you continued then to set additional trail cams, or how did you go forward capturing more footage of this thing?
Well, the second one that came along, I don't know what his deal is, but it wasn't this. I'm assuming it's a he. And if I'm misgendering one of them, I apologize. But it's hard to tell. The first one, I'm pretty sure, is a male, because he has these, and you can actually see it because there's a lot of skull images in the first documentary. So you guys listening, you really need to go on the website, register, and watch the film. I mean, it's just about the price of a cup of coffee these days. You can't go wrong, and it's real. But it has like these ornate structures near the eyes that come out, like bones. It looks like. At first I thought they were ears, but I don't believe they are. I mean, they might have something to do with its ability to generate a cloak, you know, if it's some sort of cerebral thing. But the second entity, the second reptilian, didn't have those. So I think it's like a lot of male reptiles, like they have like sometimes for birds, which of course we know birds are avian dinosaurs. You know, the males are very colorful and they have these things like sometimes on their heads, crests, you know, all sorts of stuff like that, wattles, etc. So I suspect the first one is a male. I'm not sure about the second one. The second one that came by was bigger. It was about 8 feet tall, calculated. And this one, like, they seem to have a sense of humor because he, like, came out with this cloak that was, like, different. And it looked like thick, giant snowflakes or something, or bugs, or swirling around by the same sort of pattern and stuff. And he was hard to see, but then he, like, popped out in the back, and it's almost like he mugged for the camera. You know, he actually smirked right at it. Like this, kind of like that. But it wasn't a very friendly smirk. And it was kind of intimidating and scary to see. You know, I wasn't sure how to take that, but you know, that will be something in the third documentary, you know, which, you know, again, a few months, but, yeah. So, I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff, but it was weird before I even, before they got caught on footage. And the first one, like I said, I don't think he intended it. You could see his expression. The second one, I think he deliberately did that. He was either testing me, he was trying to convince me maybe that I imagined the whole first thing and that it was snow. Maybe that's why he was smirking. Maybe he wanted to see if I would actually find him through all that haze and stuff like that, like a test. I have no idea. But prior to that, after getting growled at and stuff, like I said, that was back in 2021, I started like putting like trail cameras out, different spots and stuff like that. Because, let's be realistic. If you're out looking for like, I don't know, a wolf, they have a huge territory. You know what I mean? So if you spot a wolf somewhere tomorrow, if you think you're going to find it in that exact same spot, the next day or a week later, et cetera, they're all over the place. So, but I put out some of these trail cameras, and the ones I had back then were cheap, like crap. Honestly, it was like $30 garbage or something like that, $30, $40. And I got a bunch of night footage though of deer that were like you could see them standing there, infrared, and all of a sudden one would turn like that, and then it would run for its life, just bolt, and you never saw any reason for them running. Now that could be anything. Obviously, it could have been a false alarm. It could have been a bobcat maybe spooked one of them. Maybe some crazy person was running around in the dark. It could have been a Bigfoot. It could have been a dog man, et cetera. I had no idea what it was. After I got growled at, I in the beginning thought it was like a Bigfoot or a dog man, something like that. Like that threatened me initially. I had no idea that these guys even existed, in reality. But so my point is that, and this one time I had this footage of one of the ones where the deer was running or whatever and stuff. And when I went out to get the camera, there was a lot of leaf litter there. I don't remember what month it was, but I guess it was probably winter or late fall or something like that. And I saw a bunch of big, like, yay big impressions in the leaf litter, like all over the place. And one of them, it was like the leaves were like kind of pushed away, and you could see stuff like the soil. It was hard, like 30 degrees out, hard packed soil. And so I was like, oh, so I plucked a couple leaves by hand, and I found a track. It was a series of claw marks in what I'm going to call permafrost, the frozen soil, like made from non-retractable claws that had dug in as if something was on the leaf litter and then suddenly pushed itself forward, to accelerate. And its claws had raked the hard soil as it pushed itself forward. You can see when you see the soil, like a chip of it came up, like a triangle as it was pulled up. So whatever did this had, first of all, the track with claws, with padding. I had to do some number crunching, but I think it would have been close, like 8 inches wide, across the thing, which is a big foot, no pun intended. Okay. But it also had toes that sort of like would be sort of like ours, almost like smaller, larger, like that. Like a bear has a track that's more like ovoid,
right?
You know what I mean? And stuff, and has more toes. This, I think, only had 4 toes that you can see, but it had non-retractable claws. So it was either a bear or something unknown. And the only bears that were in Bucks County are black bears, and they're nowhere near this big. This would be like beyond that. This is more like in Sasquatch size, the foot. So, but with claws, see? So, so I think that that's why I said I think they hunt deer there sometimes, because the deer, the track was there. The deer ran off in that exact area. It kind of makes sense that there was something there with non-retractable claws that was chasing a deer. So they probably do that. They use their cloak or whatever. They creep up on them and then they grab one, take it to their ship. I don't know, and have some venison.
It's good eating. Now, this might be beyond your research so far, but you mentioned before things like wolves. I guess cougars would be another example, things which roam very far. They have a wide range. Do you think these things are more universal than just in the Bucks County area? Like, do you suspect they're everywhere? Not that you might know, but do you have a gut feeling of how wide-ranging these things are?
Well, I believe that this particular species are observers. I think that they come here and they observe like certain people, certain events, things of that nature. I think that's what they do. I think they have a job. Now, I don't know if they have a ship or if they're interdimensional, like you were saying, which either way would be, I guess, would be irrelevant. But I think there are a lot of them. I think that people have found tracks from them at times. I think that people see them. They say they saw them. The only difference is I'm the only poor bastard so far that seems to have actually gotten one on video. I've watched a lot of shows. You have people that come on these shows and they say, yeah, I got a photo of a reptilian and it's carrying a woman over its shoulder or something like that and all this. And then you look and see this photo and it's just a black blob, like there's like nothing there. You know what I mean? Sure. The footage that I have is black and white because it's infrared footage, but you can't deny when you look in there that you're looking at a face and everything. The question is, what is that face? So anyway, but yeah, I would imagine that they have, here and there. I don't think there's a million of them, but I'm sure there's more than just two. Hello? I lost you on the audio.
I just said it was fascinating. That was my bad. It was fascinating talking to you, as it always is, particularly about this new research that you're doing. And how do people who are watching or listening check out your video?
So I would say first, you go to maxhawthorne.com, which is, my name's right there. So just put a .com on the end. When you go on the site, you just click on the membership or whatever account thing, and then you pick what you want to do. You can do a 2-day, which is the cheaper one. You can subscribe, whichever works for you. I don't push people or anything like that. If you have a 2-day, it ends automatically. If you have a monthly, it can end when you want, or you can have it auto paid and still cancel whenever you want. That's up to you too. Nobody's locked in. It's not like one of these gym contracts where you have to sell your soul to get out of it or anything like that. There's going to be plenty more videos coming. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. There's a contact button on there for emails. My books are listed on there if anybody's interested in reading any of the novels and stuff like that as well. And there's a lot more coming. So brace yourselves because you guys are in for it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Talking Weird and sharing your most recent research with us, Max. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, and thank you. You guys are great.
Well, until I chat to you again, Max, and until I chat to everybody else out there, keep it weird.